Well, shalomi homies. How are you doing today? I hope you're living courageously, having a ferocious day. My son is at the door. He could thunderously pound on it. Don't mind the background noise. It might be prodigiously rowdy out there. But either way, we're going to carry on. Have a great time. It's going to be wonderful. I've got my tea. I'm not sitting on a slope. Coffee. Yes. I've got all kinds of things. Ganoderma suge. Harvested mushrooms.
You guys, wait, Jubilee, wait. What? Look at this. Oh, you guys, it's Ganoderma.
Oh my gosh.
Just wait.
Hold on, wait.
Just wait.
Oh,
Move
it's
your hand for a
so
second.
beautiful.
Look at this.
Wow.
Now,
look
this
at
one
the
grows on
color.
pines. It's not the same as Ganoderma lucidum, but it's like Ganoderma sporilium. Anyways, it basically grows on spine trees. It's amazing. And the last time I ever found this was 4 years ago. Oh my gosh, I'm
Look
so
at 'em
excited.
up there.
And you can see,
There's
wait,
another
wait.
one.
You can see their little buddies. Just stop. It's a wood mushroom. Just wait,
Oh,
Yumi, I'll
there's
teach
another
you.
one.
You can see these are the starts of them. Look. These are all their little starts of them. You can see them starting out here.
Oh, look at those ones.
Okay. Oh, that's so fun!
Oh, Jubilee.
Yes! There's one that's come off already.
Yeah. Oh, Jubilee. That is so gorgeous.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The worms love to set into these things early on. So they're digesting this whole tree. Now these are wood mushrooms, so they're not, though they're edible, it's not like they're eatable. They're not palatable, right? So we do water extractions on them in order to get the medicinal compounds out of it. We can dry them out, cut them up into pieces, and then you can keep them until you want to put them in a tea and make a tea with them. Like boil them for an hour.
I want to put that on my wall. That is
I know he looks
gorgeous.
so pretty.
Here, Jubilee.
Right in there. You guys know about the percolator life? Can we just pause for a second and consider something powerfully? It's like the chewing of the cud for brewing of your tea or your coffee. Just a percolator, y'all. It's classic. It's classic. It's wonderful. You can get these ultra deep, rich, long, savory brews for it's just fantastic. I highly recommend it. I found this old vintage copper at an antique store, a copper percolator. It's fantastic. I love it. Anyways, for those of you that mind care at all, let's have a good time, shall we? Anyways, I went on a foray last night in one of these classics. You guys actually recently published Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 2 by Gary Wayne. How understanding prehistory and giants helps define end-time prophecy. Anyways, there's some gems I was mining out of here last night, and there's a few of them I just wanted to hit on today because it was awesome. It was awesome. And then this morning, there he is. He's moving. He's heard my voice. He's heard my voice. He's coming forth. But this morning, I got real distracted. In Ezekiel 20, you guys ever heard of Ezekiel? Stinking savage book. It's written to the house of Israel. People are just stinking slaying their own children in the fires to Moloch. It's a big deal. Like, happened a lot. Happened regularly. There's this cycle. Civilization runs in these cycles. You know what I mean? And then there's these eons of time where the depravity of a nation reaches this climactic conclusory note before it's just utter chaos and destruction. Israel got into that. And the point of a lot of why I'm bringing forth, the gospel to every creature in that book is because he zooms in pretty well on understanding the wickedness of the nations being the pejorative reason for so much of the destruction that came their way. People refusing to turn away from just rampant, absolute insanity and embracing the wickedness, like making it not just even, they're making it something that is culturally approved of, incentivized, financed, cultivated, endorsed. That idea creates such a torment of soul, of anguish of being, and it leads to these really decisively destructive moments. But I'm just going to go back because some of you, there's my pen. Sweet. The multi-dose. Go get them, y'all. It leads to these unbelievable degradations of morality to such an extent that people no longer have the ability to tolerate righteousness, and instead they persecute the people that do. Oh, man. The reason I want to hit on this is because it's often misunderstood as to so much of what was the power bank for Yeshua's ministry. What was the most effective callings of what he was doing? But part of what has been degraded in our society is this dismissal of the supernatural, is the dismissal of anything that is not rooted in things we can touch, taste, smell, the basic sensory perceptions in life. And it's a very westernized ideology, but you can travel to places all over the world and they don't have this same stigma. Some of you who are watching this in other countries right now, you grew up in a culture that empowered you with an understanding of a supernatural worldview. And that is such a gift on one side, because in our culture, we have this like idea that every symptom, disease, problem, ailment, emotion can be and should be first met with a physical response. We should go ask our doctor about that problem. We should ask our psychiatrist. We should seek out, like right now, for instance, big tech is merging so much with big medicine, big pharma, to where they want to be able to have, your virtual doctor be able to deliver drugs to you, to your door from Amazon, like immediate deliveries. That they're trying to make that connective response time so much quicker, so people will be able to have it on demand, boom, at their fingertips at any time, whenever it goes off. And this is because we've been conditioned for decades, really more, almost 110 years right now, but that's all very strategic. It's very strategic. When there was these financiers beginning to move in and starting to establish, hey, how can we start to buy out the medical establishment? How can we finance a form of degrees, even so, where people are learning a path of education that will allow them to be our certified experts? And we're going to, at the same time, we're going to condition the civilian population to respond and obey experts, that they will go to them and they will obey them. And those experts are going to be trained up in a form of medicine that is conducive towards this other level of our business model, right? Predominantly pharmaceuticals, petrochemical-based pharmaceuticals. So we'll have this cohesive consumer that will connect to the business product for life, that cradle to grave kind of ideology for consuming the lives of men. And this just makes me think every time when I hear that, why it describes the trafficking of the souls of men at the end of the age. This is fundamentally what mankind gets reduced to as a product. It becomes reduced down to a widget that's literally trafficked around on a board of profitability. And so that venture capitalists and others that are trying to get their money back out of the equation, they're able to cash in on that prize later on in life. But Yeshua literally came to bring people this freedom, this understanding of their power that they have from them. If you turn with me real quick, ready? Sword fight, Matthew 9, go. Some of you, I really hope some of you actually like have a Bible, like physically, sword, just cut your faces off. Get it. I'm reading, some of you are going to ask every time, ISR Scriptures Translations, one of my absolute favorites. There's many good ones in there. I might even show you guys some of my other study tools that I use on the actual computer when I'm looking up stuff, and it'll be helpful. I show you guys this every so often, but eSword is one of the tools that I use. eSword X. Of course, they got the X in there because, cryptography. Anyways, check this out. Matthew 9, ready? And we're going to jump into verse 27. And as Yeshua passed on from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying out, saying, Son of David, have compassion on us. And when he came into the house, the blind men came to him, and Yeshua said to them, Do you believe that I am able to do this? And they said to him, Yes, Master. Then he touched their eyes, saying, According to your belief, let it be to you. And their eyes were opened. And Yeshua strictly ordered them, saying, See, let no one know. But they went out, and they made him known in all that land. And as they were going out, see, they brought to him a man, dumb and demon-possessed. And when the demon was cast out, the dumb one spoke. And the crowds marveled, saying, It has never been seen like this in Israel. But the Pharisees said, He casts out demons by the rulers of demons. And Yeshua went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their congregations and proclaiming the good news of the reign, and healing every disease and every bodily weakness among the people. And having seen the crowds, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered, as sheep having no shepherd. And he said to his taught ones, The harvest truly is great, but the workers are few. Pray then that the master of the harvest would send out workers to his harvest. Just consider this like actually as reality. For those of you that just want to suspend your disbelief for a second and just carry on with me in understanding these are these words have veracity, like substance and truth. You can bet your life on them, because other people harbored in their heart belief And it literally says in the scriptures, when their hearts were cleansed, when they heard these words, and they believed them, their hearts were cleansed. Like, consider strongly, the word has this power to actually cleanse your heart. When you believe it, when you understand it, and you actually identify with it, it has this purifying ability in your hearts. Even it says in Ephesians that husbands are to love their wives as Yeshua, as Christ, the Messiah, loved the church, washing them with the water of the word, purifying them. The word has this purifying, cleansing capacity to it. And when Yeshua came, when Jesus Christ of Nazareth showed up, he demonstrated his authority as the messenger of the word, the carrier of the word made flesh, who made his dwelling with us. When he demonstrated that, when he spoke, there was cleansing, there was purification, there was a washing that took place. And you've got, in just this tiny little section of the scriptures, you see him demonstrating his ability to clean, to heal, to restore, to open eyes, to teach, to proclaim. He has all this capacity latent and stored up inside him to rectify, to set back in right standing all the things that have been out of whack for so long, and to bring them back into alignment. He's like the living chiropractor. You know what I'm saying? I can't even describe to you guys how many cataclysmic injuries I have had throughout my life, and how many times I have crawled my way at times into a chiropractor's office, literally broken and busted up after car accidents, and had those amazing healers realign my spine, realign my neck, my ribs, like just take this broken mess of a man and begin to put me back together. That was this unbelievable restoration that was needed so that I could stand upright again. That power to bring things back into alignment was so amplified, was so powerful in Yeshua, that when he spoke, just at his words, he was able to bring people back into alignment, to bring restoration of all things. This was the demonstration of his authority on the earth, but it wasn't just a demonstration for the individual. Like those blind men, desperate for their sight, crying and wailing. How many of you have been in that position throughout your life where you are on your face crying and wailing for healing, for restoration, for redemption, for a miracle to come to pass? But how many of you also on the other side have been trained and conditioned all your life to first go and seek everything out through the mainstream medicine, through the westernized approaches towards problem reactions and solutions? We have been so hardwired to go that direction that many of us have not learned the disciplined arts of being humbled, and of seeking the Father's face, of actually seeking him diligently and believing that he has the power to heal and to restore and redeem. But here, these people did. They demonstrated that belief. They came to his feet. They submitted to him, and they got a demonstration of authority. But that wasn't just for the people that were in the room. So much of what the Messiah's ministry really was about was a demonstration of a reversal of authority. Because up until this point, the world, the deed to the earth, in a sense, had been given over to the principalities, these dark rulers, to Satan. And then Yeshua, when he is here, he is demonstrating and taking back the land. He is reclaiming the territory of the hearts of mankind, first and foremost, by the authorized word that he is bringing forth. That demonstration of power is sending ripples through the spiritual realm in places that you and I can't see. You and I may not be able to see that or to identify it, but in that spiritual realm, boy, is it being made known. He is being made known, and there's proclamations being made. It's a big deal. Now, I say that because when these demons leave, they bring a report. It's not like they're dead and they're gone. They bring a report back of what happened and why they lost their assignment. Demons hate losing their assignments. When somebody who is suffering from schizophrenia, when they're literally voices on the inside, when they're hearing voices a lot from the outside, tormenting them, conflicting, confusing them, tormenting them, when those voices are literally cast off of them, like the demonic realm leaves them, and they are given their soundness of mind back, that is a demonstration of an authority that in that individual's life brings transformation. It really does. And there's people who have experienced this personally, whose lives are being forever altered. But then there's another modality that says the only way to treat this is to basically medicate it away so that the symptoms are reduced enough to where the person can function or the person is not a danger to themselves or a danger to others. However, there is symptom management and then there's the cure. And when you get the cure in your life, you are so invigorated, you are so passionate, you are so filled with joy and hope, and then you have this desire to go out and tell everybody that you know that what's happened to you. What's happening here every time. You'll see this over and over again throughout the Gospels where Yeshua's like heals somebody and he's like, don't tell no one. Don't you go tell no one. And then they go tell everyone. And then he gets mobbed by crowds of people that come to him. And then he's like, I really can't even be here or function here. And he'll have to seclude himself and relocate to another area. He'll have compassion for the people and heal a lot of them. But that demonstration of transformation that's taking place in someone's life when they do get healed, when they actually experience healing, is so powerful. It's so productive. And yet this world will work deliberately to snuff that out, to make us forget it, to make us mitigate it or cast it away or forget how important and critical it was. But there's a lot of people today who are watching this right now, are going to watch it later on, who've experienced miracles like this, because this is the authority that's been given to us by the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. And I just want to zoom in on that for a second because it's critical and it gets missed and overlooked and often forgotten, as this is one of the most important things that we can be doing and operating under the authority and the dominion of Yeshua. When we have his power working in us, these signs are supposed to follow us, that we are ready and equipped to be able to administer deliverance to people. And the amount of demonic oppression that people are experiencing now is reaching levels that it's really never been. And because of that, we now have this great harvest potential that's out there and ready for us. But we need to be equipped with a basic understanding of what that authority was. And if you notice here, the story about Yeshua casting off that demon that was making the man dumb. Listen, let's just go back for 1 second. And as they were going out, see, they brought to him a man, dumb and demon possessed. And when the demon was cast out, the dumb one spoke, and the crowds marveled, saying, it was never seen like this in Israel. So he is showing this casting out of this demon. And when he is cast out, the symptom literally is that the man who was bound up, the bondage that he had was that he could not speak. Now he has given his voice back. But understand, this isn't only just because of a demonic oppression that this can happen. We have evidence that in the beginning of Luke, Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, John the Immerser, his mouth was shut. His ears were also shut. When he was literally, he was unable to speak. We just don't think of him being like just deaf. He couldn't hear what was going on, but he literally couldn't speak to them. That's why he was using signs. They were signing to him, it says. And then he was writing things down. He couldn't speak, nor could he hear. So sometimes the Father can close people's ears and their mouth, but other times it's the demonic, and they're demonstrating their authority and their dominion, and they're silencing somebody's speech. But when he took authority over that spirit and cast it out of him, he was revealing to the people that this is who I am. I came to, these are prophecies that were made about him, that he would literally open the mouths of people, that he would give sight to the blind. This was part of the proclamation of him establishing, I am here. I am demonstrating that I am the ruler and I am sovereign over this territory of the hearts of men. Check this out. We're going to go back now to Ezekiel 20 because this chapter, this is one of those like synopsis chapters of the scriptures. That's fantastic because you get a full history lesson right here. And you'll see the progression of what happened in the nation over time. Check this out. And it came to be in the 7th year, in the 5th month, on the 10th day of the new moon, that certain of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yahuwah and sat before me. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, have you come to inquire of me? As I live, I am not being inquired of by you, declares the Master Yahuwah. Judge them, Son of man, judge them. Make known to them the abominations of their fathers. And you shall say to them, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, on the day when I chose Israel and lifted my hand in an oath to the seed of the house of Jacob, and made myself known to them in the land of Mitzrayim, I lifted my hand in an oath to them, saying, I am Yahuwah your Elohim. On that day I lifted my hand in an oath to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim into the land that I had searched out for them, flowing with milk and honey, the splendor of all lands. And I said to them, each one of you throw away the abominations which are before his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Mitzrayim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. But they rebelled against me and would not obey me. All of them did not throw away the abominations which were before their eyes, nor did they forsake the idols of Mitzrayim. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them, to complete my displeasure against them in the midst of the land of Mitzrayim. But I acted for my name's sake, that it should not be profaned before the eyes of the nations, among whom they were, before whose eyes I had made myself known to them, to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. So I took them out of the land of Mitzrayim, and I brought them into the wilderness, and I gave them my laws, and showed them my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, to know that I am Yahuwah, who sets them apart. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not walk in my laws, and they rejected my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. And they greatly profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said I would pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness to consume them. But I acted for my name's sake, not to profane it before the nations, before whose eyes I had brought them out. And I myself also lifted my hand in an oath to them in the wilderness, not to bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, the splendor of all lands, because they rejected my right rulings and did not walk in my laws, and they profaned my Sabbaths, for their heart went after their idols. And my eye pardoned them from destroying them, and I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. Do you understand? He's connecting a few predominant things here when it comes to he's giving them all of these things, gifts to them. The Sabbath being one of the major, just greatest gifts that he gives to mankind is the Sabbath day. He gave that to mankind as a gift for them, and yet you'll see them profaning it, bringing it down to this ruinous heap, bringing it to nothing. Other times you'll read like profanity, not like the same as like verbal curse words that we think of today, but literally taking something that's pure and making it something that is regular, ordinary, and of no benefit, of no set apartness, no holiness, taking it all out of there. And that they're taking up, this is a really big one. All through Ezekiel, you'll hear him hit on this. For their heart went after their idols. And I know for us today, it's hard for us to recognize or see the idolatry in our lives, or that's being brought to us in the world, that's cultivated around us. But we still have idols that are perpetually inviting us with our time, our energy, our emotions, our finances, our resources to devote ourselves to them. There is idolatry still rampant all over, whether it's the idolatry of ourselves and a culture that is trying to exalt and worship the self, or it's cultures and identities of idolatry that's worshiping the stars, entertainers, sports, all these other avenues that are seeking to vie for our attention. They're literally being cultivated and created in our hearts. And this is why so much of the scriptures is trying to deal with the heart of the man, the issue of what's going on the inward side of a man. But going after these idols is what will lead to this degradation of it. And when we think of the people in the wilderness and traveling through there, it's hard for us to imagine just how often there was idolatry going on. But it says that they were setting up the tabernacle to literally Moloch in the wilderness, that they were literally exalting the star of Remphan in the wilderness. They were carrying with them idols from Egypt. They didn't just bring with them, a mixed multitude went out. It wasn't just the Israelites. Many people from a lot of different lands and territories and beliefs and customs and idolatry and identities came with them when there was the demonstration of Yahuwah on Egypt, Mitzrayim. When that demonstration took place, many came with them, but they also brought a lot of their junk. When they brought that junk with them, they still carried it out and practiced it in the wilderness. Like Stephen in Acts 8 or 7, man, he lays down the hardest, saltiest, best, my favorite synopsis of the scriptures, one of the best ones that you can ever get. like a single chapter to memorize, y'all, that encapsulates so much of the history. Oh my. The history of Israel is encapsulated in his pronunciation to the people. And they're like, don't you talk like that. We're going to kill you. It's a great chapter. One of my favorites. Anyways, that understanding, that perspective is generally missing for most of us when we think about the people in the wilderness. But there's a reason he is so mad that he's like, I'm going to blot all these people out. I'm going to kill them all. And I'm going to start with you, Moses. And he's like, don't do it. Read Exodus 32. Exodus 32 is phenomenal. Worshiping Yahuwah in a way that he is like, I didn't say do that. That's not the way I told you to worship me. Don't go after it. Don't go do that. He was not happy about it. The people were like, no. This is all for you. This is all for you. We're going to take your name. We're going to put it on top of this festival, this holiday, and we're going to call it your day. He's like, don't do that stuff. Not once. Anyways, didn't work out very well. Check this out. Let's carry on. Verse 18. And I said to their children in the wilderness, okay, because he kills all of them, sent a wasting disease, waited till they all died, dropped dead in the wilderness. Do not walk in the laws of your fathers, nor observe their rulings, nor defile yourselves with their idols. So he's talking about the laws of their fathers. They're observing their rulings. So they had their own laws, they had their own rulings, and they had their own idols. These are the three things they were carrying with them and impressing upon them. And here we are now, hundreds and hundreds of years after the fact, when the leaders of Israel are coming to Ezekiel and they're like, hey, can you please talk to us about what Yahuwah is thinking? And he's like, we're going to deal with all the stuff your fathers taught you and that you've been carrying on. And he's equating to the stuff that they're doing that today is just like what their fathers generations beforehand brought with them out of Egypt. These things they brought with them in their heart, and then the physical statutes and spiritual statutes that they took with them. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Walk in my laws and guard my right rulings and do them and set apart my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you to know that I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. But the children rebelled against me. They did not walk in my laws and my right rulings. They did not guard to do them, which if a man does, he shall live by them. They profaned my Sabbaths. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to complete my displeasure against them in the wilderness. But I held back my hand and acted for my name's sake, not to profane it before the eyes of the nations, before whose eyes I had brought them out. Also, I myself lifted my hand in an oath to those in the wilderness to scatter them among the nations and disperse them throughout the lands, because they had not done my right rulings, and they rejected my laws. They profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on their fathers' idols. Have you guys heard of one of these idols? This isn't just gazing upon idols that just sit there on the mantelpiece. I know most of us have that idea of what idols are. There's a type of idol Rachel stole from her father, Lamech. No, oh my gosh, not Lamech. That's way further back. Anyways, hold on a second. Laban. Rachel stole the household idols, right? You guys remember this story? Back in, Genesis 31? Laban's heart and his son's heart is turned against Jacob. He's like, dang it. They're jealous of him. They hate him. They're conspiring ways to get back at him, stealing his wages. They're just being crooks. They're being super crooked on him. So he's like, hey, we're going to bounce out of here. He goes and tells his ladies. He's like, Rivka, Leah, Rachel, Leah, we got to bounce. We got to get the heck out of here. And they're like, okay, let's go. Well, Rachel steals the teraphim of her father. These were specific idols. It says in the book of Jasher, it describes in great specific details what the teraphim did. And they would sacrifice the firstborn son. They would take the skin off of his head, and then they would take that skin, dry it out, preserve it, tan it, and then they would put it over an idol. And they would put a gold amulet with the name of a mighty one upon it, put it in its mouth, or copper, and put it in its mouth. And then they would set it up somewhere prominently. Then they would light candles to it and make food offerings to it. And they would ask it questions. And it would tell them, it says, by the power of the stars, it would divine for them. It would answer them. So these things literally would speak. There would literally be possession of these things, and they would speak. It wasn't just some kind of ethereal, oh, maybe it'll answer us. No, some of these things actually answered people. And there was real demonstration of power by these idols or by the priests that were intermediates between the idols and man. That kept people hooked to them. That's what Rachel stole them. It says that she stole them because she didn't want her father to ask the idols where they had went. And so she was trying to protect her family. That's in the book of Jasher, for what it's worth. Some of you guys don't care at all what that has to say, but it's something interesting and certainly lends a different set of perspectives on it. That power of the household idols was carried on generationally, because you got to remember, some of these people grew up their whole lives seeing their fathers do these things, and they saw this was the way that we do it. These were the traditions of the fathers, and it was very hard for them to break off from it. But here he is continually reminding people, cast off the ways of your fathers that are leading you to vanity, that produce the fruits of worthlessness in your life or the lives of the people around you. Check this out. We'll go back to Ezekiel 20. And I also gave, verse 25, and I also gave them up to laws that were not good and right rulings by which they would not live. And I defiled them by their own gifts as they passed all their firstborn through the fire, so that I might stun them, so that they know that I am Yahuwah. And this is ultimately the verse that just smashed me in the teeth this morning, because there is the defiling of the gifts and him bringing to devastation. He uses the word stunned here, which I don't think I'd ever read in the scriptures in my entire life, like really recognized it. They are practicing the rituals of burning their children alive through the fire, or they're dedicating their children to this other priest class that will transform the child and turn them into a different type of identity. They literally will alter them so that they become a priest in the house of Moloch, or there's a lot of different mighty ones that are named specifically. It wasn't just Moloch that they would pass their fires to. Solomon brought up and raised up altars to a lot of other deities that also require child sacrifice as part of the ruling. But he literally is saying that the gifts that the people would bring in with them, sometimes they would bring in specifically gold and silver and different talismans, so that during the ritual, the spirits would inhabit those gifts and those objects, and then they would bring those back home with them, like a good luck charm, or the thing that would divine for them, or the thing that they could use to make magnify their household. Those gifts are literally become the stronghold and the object that we would say today is a cursed object, the thing that's in their house that's literally going to be the root of destruction in their life, because they brought it in from this defiling act. That's the kind of stuff that he is trying to tell them. You got to root this stuff out diligently. Some of you, that literally means you got to examine your life and look at the physical possessions that are in your house that might be those very cursed objects. Maybe not from you personally in your family, but your fathers or your grandfathers. There are cursed objects that enter into our lives that have gone through these types of desecration, that have been used in this kind of ritual way, that you may not consider have any power. Or just because you don't believe it and you've never practiced it doesn't mean that it's not defiled. It's set apart to destruction. That's the stuff you've literally got to root out of your life. My wife and I spent a lot of time back in Colorado physically looking through our stuff that was in storage, the stuff that we had not really done anything with, that was just sitting in storage, and literally going through individual item by item by item to look for anything that might fall into that category of stuff that had no business being a part of our life, because we were deliberately trying to set ourselves apart to the Father. We really wanted to be his. We wanted to be wholly his, and we didn't want things in our life that were going to hinder our relationship. We didn't want anything that was coming between us and him. And if there were defiled things that were in our lives, we didn't want to bring them with us anywhere we went from that day forward. And I say this because some of you are sitting here with issues that are going on in your life, and you're crying out and you're praying and you're seeking for deliverance and restoration and understanding and freedom, and not finding it. And something I would strongly consider you to do is to go through your physical belongings, your possessions, and root out these things that may be clinging to you, that may be invading your life and sitting parasitically in the background as a legal right that the enemy has to bring consequences against you, to bring curses against you, to alight those things against your family or your children. Just something to consider. The reason I bring this up, y'all, is because there is this hierarchy of authority that is playing out in the spiritual realm that has massive influence in the physical reality of what we see with our eyes around us. What we see in the physical is already something that is a byproduct, a later end product of the spiritual consequences of things that are going on in another realm. These actions that we take in our life that we may not think as having massive ramifications can have incredibly big demonstrations in the spiritual realm of who we really follow and who our master is. When those people that were demon possessed, those people that were blind and sick and bodily weak, when they humbled themselves and they laid themselves bare before Yeshua, they were demonstrating to all the other spiritual forces that I believe he has the power, he has what I need, and I put my faith in him to deliver me. They understood something that was going on with Yeshua that was distinct and different than anybody else that was on the earth at the time, and they were willing to lay everything bare to try to get him and have him help them. This is but that the reason Yeshua has that authority, it continues on, and it only increased after his death and his resurrection, because in his death and in his resurrection, he demonstrated all the more thoroughly the resurrection power that he took with him, gave him, and he conquered death and hell, right? Hades and death. He literally got the keys over them, the authority to control that. Check this out. This is from Gary Wayne. We're going to go jump into the Genesis 6 conspiracy part 2. This is in his chapter, which is called Hillel, God of Hell. God of Hell, chapter 10. Isaiah 14:15. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Even though Hillel is the likely etymological root for hell, Isaiah 14:15's hell is not translated from Hillel or a variant thereof in Hebrew, but oddly from the Hebrew word Sheol. The KJV translators conflated, as did later translators, four distinct and places and or concepts: Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, and the lake of fire, into the umbrella term hell in English. One suspects the dastardly deed to conflate these four concepts was designed for specious double entendre end-time deployment aligned to the Gnostic interpretive approach of Scripture. It follows then that to fully discern much of prehistory and its related context to define prophetic allegory, one must audit the original Hebrew and Greek meanings for selected words that unwind the nuances between various words or terms like the abyss, underworld, and lake of fire represented in the umbrella term hell. As such, Jesus grouped hell, Hades, and death, or Thanatos, when discussing the first death versus the second death through the lake of fire. Revelation 1:18. I am he that lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive. I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and death. Sheol is cognate Hebrew word in the Old Testament for Greek Hades in the New. Sheol in Hebrew was understood as the home of the dead, the underworld, and a place of exile and punishment. Hades in the New Testament is defined as a place of disembodied spirits, departed souls of the wicked, and a grave. Because the human spirit sleeps when the first death occurs, Hades and Sheol is the abode of fallen angels, the abyss prison, the occult heaven, and a place of disembodiment, Nephilim and Rephaim spirits. Hades is translated 10 times as hell and 1 time as grave. Hell in 2 Peter 2:2, although derives from Tartarus, the subterranean region that includes the deepest abyss and prison of Hades, an abode of the most wicked, a doleful place of darkness holding captives, a place reserved for angels that sinned. 2 Peter 2:4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, or Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Building on the underworld descriptions of Tartarus and Hades, Jude 1:6 describes the abode of convicted fallen angels as a place containing everlasting chains to hold the convicts, as in a prison, and a place of darkness, gloom, and the darkness of the netherworld. Darkness is the same word used in 2 Peter 2, the definition of which describes Tartarus as a place in Sheol and Hades as a place of chains and darkness. 1 Peter 3 describes the place where Jesus, while his body was in the grave, so to speak, spoke to those disobedient spirits and angels from the days of Noah at the prison that held the fallen angels. Prison, or Faluke, in this application is defined as a cage, imprisonment, a concrete guard, and a watchover. The underworld prison described above is the bottomless pit described in Revelation 9, the place where the Nephilim angels will be released from in the last 7 years and in the days of the trumpet blasts. Bottomless, or abusos, is defined as the depthless, the abyss, the deepest chasm in the earth, and pit, fraer, as in the bottomless pit, means a hole in the earth, a cistern, and a well, the pit of the abyss prison, which one has a narrow orifice, which seems to be in another dimension, occupying the same space as the underworld. That bottomless pit and prison in Hades leads one back to Isaiah 14:50's pit that Satan will be sent to after the end of the age. So what he's getting at here is the chains of authority that are literally placed over the watchers and the rebellious fallen angels. They were held in chains of darkness. And when Yeshua was dead in the grave, he went down and preached to them, proclaimed to them, heralded over them in victory that he literally had conquered death, that he was the authority over it and took captivity captive and was bringing a great gift of the hosts of men with him. He was demonstrating his authority over them and proclaiming to them, it says, like it's like the gospel, a different kind of gospel than you and I get, but who he was being magnified and presented to them. The shifting of what happened in the spiritual realm of that authority taking place is such a massive, massive moment that we can't fully understand because of our lack of being able to perceive those spiritual worldview that we got. We did not get the same perspective and lens that a first century Hebrew would have had. We don't get to see the world through the spiritual realm of what these people have. And so it takes deliberate, intentional study to know what was the worldview that these people had. What was it that they thought of, how the spiritual hierarchy worked? But when Yeshua showed up and demonstrated these things, or when you go over, like if you guys go over to Colossians with me, there's phrases that get thrown out that if we don't have a context for it, it just flies right over our head. Here's one, for example, in Colossians chapter 2. And I'll go back a little bit. Verse 9, because in him dwells all completeness of Elohimness bodily, and you have been made complete in him who is the head of all principality and authority. In him you are also circumcised with a circumcision not made with hands, in the putting off of the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Messiah, having been buried with him in immersion, in which you were also raised with him through the belief in the working of Elohim, who raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having blotted out that which was written by hand against us by the dogmas which stood against us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the stake. So he's explaining the dogmas, these literal traditions of fathers, the doctrines of men that had been built up through all this time, all of these things that people have added to or put around the scriptures is defining this is how you worship the Father, this is how you follow him. All the man-made traditions that were tied up in that. Having stripped the principalities and the authorities, he made a public display of them, having prevailed over them in it. This phrase right here, stripping the authorities of all of their power, like when soldiers were conquered, they could strip their leaders, their officers, their generals of all of their rank, all of their renown, all of their medallions, all the thing that showed to everyone else, this is who we are. He stripped them down in much the same way that they stripped him down on the earth, down to this ragged heap of a man, to make him to where he was so mutilated that he was unrecognizable as a man. He, in his glory, did unto them. He stripped them of that authority. That's why you can have a firm foundation when you are having to engage in spiritual warfare, when you're having to contend against these spirits or these powers that are working against you or your family or the people that come into your life. You have the authority because Yeshua has already stripped them of their power. He has already taken that from them, and he clothes you with his power from on high to engage those entities so that you're not ruled by them, so that they're not dominating and controlling and ruling your life. But it takes a deliberate understanding of your identity, of your ability to enact in it and walk in it. You'll see a lot of that ideology, a lot of that understanding played out through the writings of Paul and through Peter. You'll see this heavy emphasis placed on it, but they also are writing to an audience that they believe already has a working framework of this. If you go to 1 Timothy chapter, let's go to 2. First of all, then I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all men, for sovereigns, and for all those who are in authority, in order that we lead a calm and peaceable life in all reverence and seriousness. For this is good and acceptable before Elohim our Savior, who desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. So how can men come to be saved without a thorough knowledge of the truth? People are in need of this today, now more than ever before, a deep and understanding of a knowledge of the truth. When we administer the word to people, when we are bold enough to come out of the closets of cowardice that so many of us were raised in, and we actually speak the words with confidence, we are ensuring for others an opportunity for them to have an actual showdown spiritually, an actual meeting at the crossroads where they're going to choose this day who they're going to serve, whether they're going to wrestle with that information, whether they're going to wrestle with the gospel and be set free for it, or they're going to reject it. But ultimately, by us bringing that to them, we give them an opportunity to find restoration from it. Man, I talked to a really awesome guy who was laboring for the soul of another man. I can't give a lot of details because of their position and work and what they do, but he was interceding for this guy who had a power encounter. He had a power encounter between a demonic horrific demonic attack that was going on in his life, and he cried out to Jesus and he brought him deliverance. Now, he didn't believe fully in him. He didn't really have full confidence of it, but he had a demonstration of that. That opened up the door of opportunity to have the conversation with him for the believer to begin to share insight and go through an understanding of what's going on in the scripture of why these events are taking place in his life. It opened the door for him to receive now a knowledge of the truth of what's actually going on behind the scenes. We'll carry on here. For there is one Elohim and one mediator between Elohim and men, the man Messiah Yeshua, who gave himself a ransom for all to be witnessed in its own seasons, for which I was appointed a proclaimer and an emissary. I am speaking the truth in Messiah, not lying, a teacher of the nations in belief and truth. So I resolved that men pray everywhere, lifting up hands that are set apart without wrath and disputing. Something to consider, men. Lift up your hands and pray more often. This is so much of the goal that many of us can and should and ought to aspire towards, is that we would carry on the message of being a proclaimer of the truth, that we would have a zealousness to proclaim the truth in a world full of deception, in a world full of contradictions, that we would be willing to stand on something of principles, of morality, of knowledge, of confidence of what we have found and tested to be true. I had a show the other night, man. I did. I don't share a lot of my interviews here because I feel like sometimes I'm just going to put out a lot of the same thing. But anyways, I did an interview with some guys the other night, and before this show, I had just such a heaviness in my heart because I go into understand when I do these interviews with different media groups, I don't know what the state of their heart is. I don't know who they are by and far. I don't know what they believe, their identity, their objective, their intentions. I don't know any of those things. But I go in there and I have settled it in my heart not to, when I'm invited to speak before people, I settle it not in my heart what I'm going to say, but I believe that the Holy Spirit will give me those words in that very hour of what I need to say to people. But I had this like intense heaviness like within an hour or two before this show, and just was so burdened, and I was just weeping. I was weeping and I was reading the word, and I just felt this fear, this dread that I am unworthy to be somebody who is representing the Most High, to try to talk to people about him, to be an ambassador to others. I felt this just heavy weight of responsibility, very intense on me going into that show. And it was strange because as I went through the course of that show, I got directly asked some amazing questions about whether or not Jesus can be trusted. Is the Bible something we can trust, or is it just a bunch of fairy tales and made up things and Gnostic interpret? All kinds of different ideas were thrown at me. But I had this opportunity to present the Messiah, but it was with a lot of reverence and brokenness. And I needed that. I needed that because that positioned me in a state of humility where I wanted the Father to speak through me. I wanted to be clothed with the power from on high to represent him accurately and carefully and with purity. That was what I needed, because for me, it comes down to an understanding of the covenant, understanding of covenants that we have with the law of sin and death, the law that governs the kingdom of darkness, and the covenant of the Most High. We need to understand what these covenants are all about. And so it was an amazing opportunity to actually bring that to light and to shed some light on it, because obviously I've got a lot of horrifically dark things that have gone on in my life in the past. And it opened my eyes up at such an early age to a supernatural worldview that's very different than most people have. But because I had that, I got an understanding of how these entities operate and how they enforce their edicts of will against mankind. And now I've been given I've been bought out of darkness and literally transferred into the kingdom of life. And I want to share with others what that's all about. It ended up being a really incredible show, but I was broken even in the midst of the show, man, moved heavily by it. And I'm recognizing that we are genuinely waging a war for the souls of men. And sometimes you don't have a clue who this person is that you're talking to or going to bump into, but the Father has prepared intersections of people's lives with you in your sphere of influence that I don't have, that all kinds of other people don't have. But He's been preparing you your entire life for opportunities to administer the knowledge of the truth to those that are desperate for it. Don't ever forget, you have no idea what's going on in the back of people's lives, behind the wall of whatever mask they might be wearing temporarily, and are seeking answers or understanding or insights that you may be the only person that is right now in their life that can give them. And I just want to encourage you guys, brothers and sisters, this is a great opportunity for you to bring forth the word, to bring forth the words of encouragement, to strengthen the weary with the word. And I hope you guys would do that with confidence, even if you don't feel comfortable, even if you don't feel like you really have a good enough working understanding to be able to do that. Understand that humility, that willingness to understand your weaknesses gives the opportunity for the Father to demonstrate His strength perfected in your weaknesses. And that is a demonstration of Him, and He gets the glory for it, and He gets to be honored and magnified. It's not because of my rhetoric and my communication abilities or any of that. It's because of His Spirit drawing men unto Him, that they can even be curious, that they can even be inquisitive and finding out the realities of what's going on. And that's the things we should hunger for and thirst for, and praying for those that are in positions of leadership over us, praying for those that are in powerful places all over the earth, that they would have their hearts turned towards Him, that they would be convicted of their sins. They would be brought to a need to know their Messiah. And you know what? These are those things that we should wrestle with on a regular basis. But you guys, I do love you. I thank you guys for coming along on a little journey with me today. And you know what? No matter what's going on, just know that you are cared for. The Father has a plan and a purpose for your life. And I pray that you would seek Him diligently. Seek Him while He may be found. For those of you that don't know about the Scriptures Challenge, some of you can memorize a chapter of Scripture. Send me a video of you doing that. I will send you a sweet knife, sweet savage knife. If you're a younger child, hey, check this out. I got to tell you, because some of the parents are like wee lads. If you sent me a video of your child doing a demonstration of the Scripture, and you did not get your package, please send me an email so I know that, because sometimes I don't hear back and I don't know whether or not you got it. If you did, otherwise, I also have sweet flashlights for the younger children. We have treasure chests, bags ready and prepared. We're trying to incentivize you guys to zealously learn the word. Seriously, it'll change you way more than just the knife, but it's a good reminder of it. Anyways, I love you guys so much. May you live courageously, no matter what the days may be evil. Hey, fight for it. Fight for the freedom. Be someone who is diligent to guard the truth no matter the cost. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.